So I'm like 98% sure that this movie is literally just based on this picture.
I've been thinking we should probably take down that other crib.
No.
Stillborn is directed by Brandon Christensen. It stars Christy Burke and Jesse Moss, and it tells the story of a new mother who unfortunately only gave birth to one live twin, and she becomes convinced that there's something evil in her house trying to take her living son. I only found out this movie existed fairly recently because the director posted about it on Reddit, and the premise kind of intrigued me. Things on baby monitors are scary. Things happening to helpless infants are scary. This film preys on the fears of new and expecting parents, and for that crowd specifically, I think it would be really successful. For people like me who don't have kids and aren't anticipating any, however, it's still pretty effective. Stillborn's not a perfect film, but the things it does right and the things it does well are definitely worthy of praise. At its core, ultimately, this isn't a horror film about, demons or ghosts or monsters. It's ultimately a horror film about the struggles of being a new mother. The elements of this film involving postpartum depression and grief are easily its strongest elements, and they're handled extremely well due to an incredibly unhinged performance by Christy Burke. The writing, coupled with Burke's excellent performance, really leaves you as an audience member feeling as uncertain and paranoid as Mary is. You're not sure whether it's her fragile mental state and her grief affecting her in a dark way, or if there really is something more sinister going on in the house. Another element I really wanted to praise with this film is its editing. It's meticulously crafted to keep you really off-kilter and uncomfortable. The opening scene alone is a really well-handled depiction of Mary's birth and subsequent stillbirth, complete with a really, really well-done score. And then suddenly, without any warning, the film just cuts to complete silent credits. And there are several instances of jarring hard cuts like that throughout the film. And it just lends to this overall off-kilter and unsettling vibe right from the opening scene. Several shots are repeated throughout the film, and it almost feels intentionally monotonous in a way, and it puts you as an audience member into the same maddened state that Mary's getting into. Brandon Christensen does a remarkable job at building tension in this film as well. The scares in this film are, for the most part, really well handled. There are several scenes in this movie that legitimately gave me goosebumps because they're so chilling and they're so subtle and well done. The first scare in the film genuinely unnerved the fuck out of me because it just comes the hell out of nowhere, and it's a really creepy visual. What I applaud most about this film, though, is its subtlety in regard to most of the scares. This movie more often than not uses subtlety and ambiguity and creepy sound design over the loud, cheap, obnoxious jump scares that you would see in a lot of films like this. Even when there are jump scares, though, they're executed well enough and they come with so much tension that they're still incredibly effective. I especially applaud them for the final moments of the film, which could have easily been a stupid, cheap, sinister-esque ending jump scare, and instead is subtle and ambiguous and leaves the audience to kind of think on what the ending overall meant. On the subject of the ending, though, this is where things fall apart a bit. The first 2/3 of this film, as I said, are really well directed and well executed, but as we go on and reach the third act, things become really cliche and silly and a bit lazy. Nothing happens in the third act that we haven't seen in a million other films like this. Right down to the long-haired, long-limbed ghost woman with all the twitchy, janky movements. It just feels very derivative. On top of that, the writing in the third act takes a sharp decline and becomes really kind of lazy. Up until that point, it feels very naturalistic and very real and very raw. And then in the third act, it just becomes really stilted and lazy and cliche. In the climax, Mary can somehow hear her husband on a phone through a closed window that's like several feet away from her in the middle of a crowd of people, and it all just comes across as a bit shoehorned and rushed for the sake of, adding in a bit of extra drama. Another issue I had is the sound design, and I know I mentioned that as a positive during some of the scare sequences, and it is, but there are so many stock sound effects in this movie. Between just stock Foley and stock musical cues. If you've watched Ralph the Movie Maker, you know what I'm talking about when I say the violins. There's just a lot of stock royalty-free sound effects in this movie, and it really, really takes you out of things at times. Overall, though, I did enjoy Stillborn. It's a decent creepy time, and I don't regret watching it. It just didn't really necessarily bring anything new to the table. And because of that, I'm going to say that Stillborn is good for fans of ambiguous haunting films. It's decently creepy, it's well acted, it's mostly well written, but it does fall apart quite a bit once you get into the third act and the ending. Give it a watch if you're interested, just don't expect to be blown away by it. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. You could click down there and like and comment and subscribe, and I'll be back real soon with a review of Dead Shack, so stay tuned.
The only person that he's in danger from is you.